So I'm trying out this YouTube live thing to see if it makes it easier for me to show you how I paint. Not ideal setup, but it'll do. First, I'm painting on a 4x12 inch canvas, and I have already toned it with some Gamsol mixed with burnt sienna, and just did a light wash over the canvas, and then wiped away a little bit of the excess. It's still wet, still moves, but there's a first tone down. Now over here on my palette, I don't know if I'll be working with all of the colors I have on the palette today, but this is my main palette that I normally start off with for most things. I don't keep myself strictly in these colors, but this is kind of where I like to start. It's kind of more of a muted palette. So I have titanium white, titanium buff, Dyke Brown, burnt sienna, sap green. This is a very specific olive green by M. Graham, and it's more on the transparent side. An ultramarine blue and a yellow ochre. So that's what I will try to keep the mixing in view as best as I can. Again, not the best setup when you only have one camera going. I like to use chip brushes from the hardware store. I'm a cheap brush girl. I'm hard on brushes. I like the texture I can get with a lot of the bristle brushes. Maybe just move you over here to see kind of some more of my brushes there. Again, I do have some of the more softer synthetics, which I do use, but I really like to use the boar hair bristle brushes for texture purposes. So let's bring it back over here. All right. I like to go from dark to light. Also, again, I'm using for my medium walnut oil. I like walnut oil. Yes, it's slower drying, but it gives me time to play around. If I'm not using walnut oil and I need things to speed up in drying, I will use liquid. A liquid-esque, everybody has their different version, but liquid is what I've been using when I need to speed up the drying time. And here we go. So I'm gonna kind of just start with a 1-inch chip brush. I'm dipping it in the walnut oil, just kind of get the flow going of the Dyke Brown here. I make kind of this mixture. I know I'm using the brush, but sometimes that's just what happens. This has kind of been thickening up on me lately, so Dyke Brown, Sap Green, and some burnt sienna. A little bit more Sap Green here. The burnt sienna does take over a lot, so a little bit more, a little bit less would be better. But I just like this overall mixture to start out with. I don't really know where I'm going with this shape canvas, so I'm just gonna go for it. I could go either way. I could do a marsh or trees. I've already shared a marsh recently, so I think I'm gonna go with some trees. That doesn't look like trees. What are you doing? I'm making a mess. This is definitely helpful for someone who gets caught up in how things look, how to start, where to go. I kind of just go for it and see what happens. Now, obviously, that's not all going to stay. I have paper towel. And I'm just gonna see what I can find within those brush strokes. I see 3 trees here, probably. My horizon, where am I gonna get that? Where's that gonna come in? Again, I do have the walnut oil that I'm kind of using on the side here. I just don't have it shown. So when I need to make that a little bit more flow, the paint, I'm gonna use that walnut oil. Not a lot, just a little bit. Again, I'm using bristle brush. I don't even know what size this is anymore. There's so much paint on it. So, but it's a, I guess, flat or square. This part is always kind of messy and fun. Takes the edge off. When you're a perfectionist, it is better to start messy because it kind of kills that inner perfectionist. Helps me out. I have 2 palettes. There's one on my table here, so I'm used to going over to that. And this is kind of shiny, so it's kind of hard to see right now. But how do I want these trees to be? I don't know. What do I want? There's a lot of searching and finding at the composition here. Also makes it a little bit more difficult when I'm recording. Put this further away. Go in with that. Getting a little bit more there. Maybe this will not be 3 trees there. Or maybe it's a little easier. See where everything's going. There are a few artists who kind of start off this way, especially on YouTube. I believe Stuart Davies and Dennis Sheehan. I learned it from Dennis Sheehan. He has some videos out more on Facebook, some demos he has. And Stuart Davies is pretty popular on YouTube, so if you're here, if you found your way here, I'm sure you already know who he is. So yeah, I can see some forms here coming out. I also use the paper towel for that, kind of wipe away, show that light coming through. Smaller round. It's pretty a detail that I don't really need right now, but I'm gonna just kind of loosely put it in there, just so kind of have an idea of where this is going. Sometimes I don't want this to move back. It's a little too in line. I don't know how loud it is on I've got a majority of my composition in. Now I've got to think about, I like to go with the sky first, obviously. What's the sky gonna, where am I going with that? Is it gonna be foggy? Is it gonna be more of a bright day? I don't know. Just see. Where do I want to go with it? These are my used brush holders for now. Get them out of the way. Let's see. The other day, there was a really nice purple in the sky. And when I'm out, I don't work from photographs usually. I take photographs to kind of remember colors, and the camera never really does a good job capturing the color. I try to remember color combinations as best as possible. But then anything can happen, so. But there was this purple in the sky, and I think I want to start with that. And how I'm going to do that, let's see, make sure you guys can see. So I'm going to take some burnt sienna, and I'm going to take some ultramarine. I'm going to mix that up here. I love muted tones. Muted tones are my favorite. I know that's not for everybody, but I'm going to take a little titanium white. Start out with a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit more. may not look like much right now, but it's leaning. Also, I'm not on a gray thing, but it's, let's see. Some more white. More burnt sienna. Now when I need really bright colors, I use them kind of as my accents. I start off with the muted first and go from there. So now, this purple's alright. I'll have to see how it lands on the canvas. That's a little better. I have a little oil in this dish, some walnut oil, and I'm just gonna dip my palette knife into there a little bit. Get the oil palette in. So with this, I'm gonna just put that on there. Just gonna lay some of it on there. Let's see. What do I want to blend that out? I'm gonna move it around. It would bristle right now. Now, looks a lot different once it's on the canvas next to everything. It's a very muted purple. And I love it. I love this color. And again, really, this is probably, I'm just blocking it in at this point. There's no exactness. Like, see, this was too detailed too early, but I'm just gonna kind of pat over that tree a little bit, right? I also like that this color is mixing with the colors underneath. If you're not careful, obviously that's gonna get muddy, so you gotta be pretty careful. But I don't press too hard, and I'm using a bristle. Now, blade over here. Now I'm going to think about, I have this. I want to do bluish. Kind of just look and see how things go from here. I don't have any set thing in motion. There's a lot of stepping back and looking at the piece. I don't know where the chat would be for me on my phone. No idea. So, if there's any questions that ever pop up, I will have to answer them outside of the chat. So that day there was this purple and there was orange. So I think what I'm going to do is take the burnt sienna, go over here maybe, a little bit, I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow ochre and a little bit of the titanium white, and maybe too much. Again, it's very muted. Not. I'm taking the same brush that I used for the purple, because I don't care. I do now. A little bit more of that yellow. There we go. A little bit. Again, feel more like a block in. Not perfect, messy. Trees need holes. Tree holes. Light holes. I'm not gonna stay like that. It's gonna look pretty blotchy. I might come up with a less muted yellow eventually. That'll be later. Just some titanium white and yellow ochre here. That's exactly it is. Bringing in that light there. Now, some blending. This is an oval mop, synthetic. Half inch. Time to blend. Or soften. Call it softening. I'm using my phone, so if anybody puts anything in the chat, I cannot see it. But I will do my best to go back and look at anything asked later and answer those questions. So when I go into the orange here, I get a little bit on my paintbrush and I bring it back into the purple. Just getting like a subtle mixture. Now I'm going to pick up some of that orange I had before and bring it in to soften up the purple. And leave that now where it's at. Where's my purple? So I'm still using the same brush, this mop. I like how that looks. I like that. Now for trees. I'm deciding how I'm going to shape those and bring those out a little differently. I'm going to do some of that olive embryo green, a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm going to kind of go back into my brown there that I made earlier. Do a little dab in there. Just helps to bring in some of that color. This I didn't really get any oil in here. I used the oil that time. Kind of working with, this is going to have to be lighter. Again, just a bristle brush, and more stamping it like a stencil than I am anything else right now to make those tree edges. Bring it down here a little bit. Some of that titanium buff. Lighten this up. Oh, you guys can't see. So I'm making this green with olive green, yellow ochre, and the titanium buff. Sometimes I'm going in and grabbing a little bit of that too, but I won't try it now. Just getting that. You have this muted green. It's not bright. I'm not looking for bright green here. Again, we're still just blocking in. All this, the detail and texture, I'm gonna handle later. Yes. Screen. Go back in. Tighten that up. This is just straight Van Dyke Brown now. I don't want those big blocks of color, to just want some texture and light to show through. I'll use the palette knife if I want to get a little bit of a darker texture going. I don't want exact. Take that green. like the subtractive technique. Not for everybody, but I like it. This needs to have some darker spots over here. And shadow. I like the sky. Where do I want to go with that? Kind of a little path forming. I have to keep finding clean areas on my paper towel. So these tree holes are not going to stay the way they are. They look pretty crazy right now, but they're not going to stay that way. That's at the end. I'm going to adjust those. And I like what happens. The palette knife sometimes just brings in a little bit of that here or here. Now, softening the edges of the trees, changing them up a little bit. It's going to be light coming through. I'm doing it with the paper towel, not a brush. Get too exact with a brush sometimes. Bringing back that blender. How much detail? I don't know. Play around with it. Sometimes fingers are useful. At this point, I just feel like I'm talking to myself. So you can see on here that this kind of doesn't look like much, right? This purple color here, it's very muted. But then once you put it against everything else on the canvas, it really looks nice. And it definitely reads as purple. And I really like that. This is bugging me a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, that's a little better. Hard to step back. The camera is in my way. It's never just a trying to soften these edges. Again, paper towel. Moving it around so I don't bring paint colors I don't want. That sky color is going to kind of blend into the tree. And then also, tree is going to blend into the sky. So it really helps to soften it up. Still may need to go in and fix some stuff, but another thing I like to do, what was I here? So it's a little bit darker. I'm gonna take the paper towel. I'm gonna use that instead. Bring the brush back. Still just trying to shape the trees as I want them shaped. These stars a little bit too. Now I'm gonna take again, this is a 0 synthetic round. I'm gonna dip it in the walnut oil first. Just getting some olive green, some Dyke Brown, a dark color, kind of a mixture. Well, this kind of drags in the tree line here. which is fine. I don't mind. Gives that just helps bring the colors into more broken, not so heavy, just in one color, making it look fake. There's some going up here. See, it's kind of hard to see that, so I'm gonna zoom in for you. Let's bring you in so you can kind of see where I'm going with these details. Let's see, change the light a little bit, that'd be easier. So I just did it right there. Now these might have too much paint, which is fine, but I'm just lightly dabbing those light sources there. I'm gonna take this bigger round bristle, and I'm gonna go right through that light source, so you can kind of see a stem or a trunk starting there, going through. Oops, sorry, getting too close. So now it's not such a in your face light source. I'm going back to the smaller one, and I'm gonna do it over here. But it does drag some of the paint, and that's fine, because it brings some of that light into the tree. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, if some of these are too in your face, I will blot them just like I did with the paper towel and the light source itself. If the branches are too dark, I will do that. And I'm not going overboard. I have in the past gone overboard with tree branches, but I'm not going overboard. Less is more. Over here, now we have this tree that we're going to go back into. I might need to go back. Kind of hard to see in there. Sorry about that. Make it easier. No. Pull back. So now I'm working on this one, this tree here. Usually I start from the trunk and I move up. It's very light. I need to come in kind of a little bit with that sky. Kind of, not really. Not really any paint on this brush. I'm just moving paint around. Because again, I like how that is. It'd be a lot easier to back of the paintbrush. Kind of scrape away. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't like that branch. Get out of the way. Okay. Do I want any greenery on there? I don't really like that. How do we fix that? Grab it off. Sometimes the mistakes leave good things behind it. It's fine. Again, doesn't have to be perfectly painted. Too thick, possibly. Oh. Alright. This over here. I get the I like that. And I ruined it. Get that out of yourself. I like that. Actually. Try again. Another way, good way to make branches that I like is just dragging the palette knife through the trees, or the tip of the palette knife, scraping in there a little bit. That's fun. Almost at an hour. Now, going back in over here, adding not as much detail, maybe just a little, some branches here and there, because it's further away. It's not going to show as much detail. But these light sources here, you might see some detail there. Like those. I'm gonna drag some branches through there. One, two. Not all the time. I didn't do what I wanted. More oil. I think there's probably too big for this area. Okay. There. A little better. Can't really see it that much, but. The great thing about bristle brushes is that when you push them up, get nice, especially like the bigger ones, get nice grass texture pushing up. I think I'm gonna leave that for now. Let it sit. This is probably a little too dark over here though. This blotted down. That's a little better. Right. There. Have that. I'm gonna get a little closer. Let's see if you can get. I might adjust some details here and there, but overall this is the composition. So you can see without the glare. It gets darker, but there you go. That's it. Now let's figure out how to do this. Oh, is that the chat? Top chat, live chat. Figuring this out. Okay. Live chat. Oh, all right. Well, if you decide to watch this, happy watching. See how this goes.